What's going on YouTube? In this video, I'm going to be starting a brand new series that I call Explain That Niche. What's up guys? So behind the scenes, I get so many inquiries about how different niches actually work, like everything about the niche. So I decided that I would start a series called Explain That Niche. Now I'm going to be doing this series periodically, probably about once a week, maybe more if people really enjoy it. So we're going to start today with our first one. Now, before I jump into it, this is exactly what it sounds like. So I am literally going to explain any given niche completely so that you can understand it fully and know exactly what that niche is all about. I definitely think this could be valuable just in case you decide that you want to test the waters in any one of these niches that I explain. And I plan on doing, like I said, at least one of these a week, if not more. So with that being said, if you have any niches in mind that you would like me to research and explain in one of these series, please go ahead and drop them in the comments down below. And I would be happy to research it, give you the full scoop, and explain that niche. Today we're going to be talking about warehouses, and that is a niche that is near and dear to my heart, specifically because it's pretty much how I got my start in recruiting. So what exactly do warehouses do? So they do three main components, which is storage, distribution, and on-site sales. So on the storage side, essentially this just means if there's a lot of product or a lot of pallets from a different warehouse that need to be stored somewhere for a period of time before they can be actually released or sold or whatever the case is, the warehouse will actually act as a storage facility for those goods or for those things that need to be stored for a certain period of time. So the second thing that warehouses do is distribution. Now this is one of the largest components of what a warehouse actually does. So obviously they collect a lot of products, usually in the form of pallets. They store them, and then of course, when they need to be sold or moved or whatever, they distribute them. When I say distribute, I mean lots of things. I mean, there are forklifters involved, there are pickers, there are packers, loaders, unloaders, all sorts of things have to happen during a distribution process. And it's really heavy duty. So it's very complicated. There's lots of moving pieces. There's RFID scanners. There's everything in place with distribution. And it's quite actually advanced. So the other component I mentioned about warehouses is that they have on-site sales. So on-site sales essentially means at the front of the warehouse, there's definitely going to be a department or an area where there's a counter and there are salespeople. These salespeople essentially basically take orders and go retrieve whatever material they need, or vendors from various skilled trades show up, simply tell them exactly what they need, put it in an order, and that order gets delivered maybe later that day. One of the most important duties at a warehouse is actually smashing that like button, just because it would help so many more people see this video, and I would really just appreciate it. So please just destroy the living daylights out of the like button. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about who's in charge at warehouses. So in any given warehouse, you are going to have a long list of people that are in charge that actually make decisions for the warehouse in total. So at the top, you're going to have the CEO, of course, or somebody else in the C-suite. Right below that, you're going to have a regional manager. So generally, warehouses have multiple locations. So let's say in one part of the state, they have maybe 2 or 3 locations. In another, they have maybe 6. In the one part where they have 2 or 3, there's going to be a regional manager, and that person oversees all of those branches. And that leads me right into my next segue, which is the branch manager. The branch manager is the person that is specifically designated to manage one branch and that branch only. The only last people that work in the warehouse chain of command, of course, are the warehouse workers and drivers. So the people that literally do the grunt work day in, day out. And these guys work really, really hard. So these are your pickers, packers, drivers, people that drive forklift, all that kind of stuff. And those are the bottom tier of the warehouse chain of command. So of course, let's get to the six-figure question. How do you recruit for warehouses? Completely honest with you, it's a really, really simple process, and that's exactly why I was able to scale super fast by starting in this niche, and anyone can pretty much scale in this niche super quick. Basically, all of your lower tier workers, salespeople, forklift drivers, pickers, packers, drivers, all of those jobs can be found by placing ads on Craigslist. All of the rest of the management at the warehouse, you're gonna need to find those guys on Indeed and or LinkedIn. So you're talking about the CEOs, of course, or the branch managers or the regional managers. These are people that are making upwards of six figures plus, and these people are definitely not on Craigslist. Now that brings me to my next item that I wanted to answer, which is who are the decision makers? So should you choose to recruit for warehouses, who do you contact to actually get a contract signed? Now, to be completely honest with you, this is sort of a grab bag because I've gone through everybody and I've worked with CEOs, branch managers, and everyone in between. So you really kind of have to feel this one out, send out multiple emails, maybe make multiple phone calls, and figure this one out over time. However, what I have found is that regional managers are generally your best bet. So if you have a cluster of 2 or 3 warehouses in one location geographically, that regional manager usually oversees the budget and everything that goes on in that region. And of course, that includes hiring. So when it comes to pulling the purse strings out and giving out money for vendors to hire, that means the regional manager makes those calls. And I found out over the course of my time recruiting for warehouses that every time I talk to a branch manager about recruiting for their team, they need to get permission from the regional manager. So I take that pattern to heart, and I really usually go through the regional manager. So whenever I do this series, I want to do something called the low-hanging fruit score. This is basically going to tell you exactly how easy it's going to be to work with this niche. 1 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest. And the criteria is basically how hard is it to get a contract, how hard is it to fill positions, that sort of thing. Now with 1 being the easiest and 10 being the hardest, I'm going to give warehouses a 2. Now, I didn't just guess that number out of thin air. I actually used my own personal experience working with warehouses to figure that number out. The first reason I chose that number is because warehouses have relatively high turnover. It's a hard job. It's a grunt job. So you have to lift things, you have to move things, you have to do a lot of dirty work. So there's a lot of churn. Of course, what that means is that they need people often, and that means you have a really good chance of filling a high volume of roles quite often. So when a company operates like that, that means there's a lot of opportunity to fill a lot of positions, and therefore you have a lot of opportunity. Another reason I gave warehouses a number 2 on the scale of low-hanging fruit is because you actually have the opportunity to do both contracting and direct hire at warehouses. Sometimes warehouses will ask you for contractors, sometimes they will ask you just to fill direct hire positions. I've done both and they work out great because you actually have the opportunity to bill them a really high margin so you can collect a lot of money and you can actually charge them a decent rate, 10 or 15% depending on the role, to actually collect a pretty good amount of money. Warehouses are absolutely perfect for a low fee, high volume situation, and I would highly recommend them to the startup recruiter. Now, lastly, I wanted to answer the question of how lucrative this niche is. Warehouses can be as lucrative as you want them to be. So think about it like this. It all depends on you and exactly how much effort and energy you want to put in to making it worth your while. I mean, you could do business with 1 warehouse and place 2 people a month and maybe take home $8,000 a month. Or you could do business with 5 different warehouses and place 15 people per month and make $60,000 per month. It really just depends on how much you want it. So to stay true to the title of this video, you can absolutely start a 6-figure recruiting agency in the warehouse niche. Guys, go ahead and let me know down in the comments if you enjoy the concept of me breaking down a niche and explaining it in detail. And as I said before, if you do enjoy this, I'll continue to do this series on a weekly basis in the hopes that you can find a startup niche or maybe even a permanent niche. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the alert button so that you know every single time I come out with a new video. Until then.